What's going on, guys? It's your boy the Markham Knight here. Today is the final video on Zack Snyder's Justice League breakdown. This is part 7 of 7 and it is going to focus on the epilogue, specifically called A Father Twice Over. Now the first thing we see here is Cyborg, and he now has some mother box powers because he takes the broken tape recorder and he turns it back into a fully functioning tape recorder, which is kind of like with the change machine, how Cyborg described the mother box. Kind of has a little bit of those powers. The extent of those powers we don't really know. Ray Fisher himself did say he's second to only Dr. Manhattan in terms of his powers, so I'm guessing he thinks he can create things out of nothing and dissipate things out of nothing. I don't think that's the case, and I'll kind of give you some proof for that moving forwards. But let's continue on with the story. Essentially what he's hearing on the tape is Silas Stone giving him his last few messages, and he's kind of narrating the scenes that are going on, and we get a little bit of peek into every single one of the Justice League characters here. They start off with Aquaman, and Aquaman goes to see Vulko and tells Vulko that he's going home to see his dad, and obviously that sets up in the Aquaman movie, which we did see already. And then we get to see the Atom, Ryan Choi. He is now the head of nanotechnology at Star Labs. So obviously I don't think we're going to get his story anytime soon, but that was supposed to set that up for him to join the Justice League at some point as the Atom. And then we get to see Bruce Wayne, Alfred, and Diana at the Wayne Manor that was run down from Batman v Superman. And he says that he wants to essentially create the Hall of Justice, kind of like a hangout with a round table and 6 chairs. And then Diana adds, but room for more. And obviously the room for more will make sense because if you're having Shazam and you're having Martian Manhunter and potentially the Atom and maybe even Black Canary join, then obviously you're going to need some more chairs. But yeah, that was a cool moment there. And then we get to see the Flash. Now he has a job in a crime lab for the first time. Obviously, I'm guessing that's probably Star Labs. I couldn't really read the paper as well. I might have to pause it at some point, but he does have a job in the crime lab, which is kind of setting up the Flash movie, and it is kind of setting up the Flash story, and he's obviously very happy now. We see him running with a big smile on his face later. Next thing we get to see is that Lois is pregnant. She's carrying in a bassinet. Bruce does congratulate Clark on it. I initially thought that was Bruce congratulating Clark on being engaged, but then you get to see her carrying the bassinet into the house, so obviously she's divulged to everyone that she's pregnant. So that's a pretty cool insight considering what's going to happen in the future. But then they also have that joke that they had from the theatrical cut, which did make me laugh. It is a Snyder joke. He said, "How did you get the house back from the bank?" And Bruce said, "Well, I bought the bank." And some people might say, "Oh, why didn't you just buy the house?" Well, maybe Bruce Wayne doesn't want to overpay for something that the bank was selling or something, or maybe he just wanted to flex his money because he's that rich. The next thing we see is that Cyborg is finally at peace with himself. He's looking onto his father and mother's grave with a smile on his face, and he sheds his clothing, and he's ready to just be Cyborg without having any issues with it. And I do think this kind of hints at him not necessarily having the Dr. Manhattan level power yet, considering if he can just change things on a whim, why wouldn't he just change his look? But then you can also argue that maybe he's just like accepting his look. But again, I don't think his level of power is that high, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Next thing we see is Batman on his War Machine. This is the War Machine from the Dark Knight Returns comic book. Even though I'm not a fan of the Dark Knight Returns comic book, I did love the War Machine, and it looks way better in live action the way that Zack made it, and it only showed up in this one scene. I was curious to see where it would fit in here, and obviously it's only in the one scene, but it does look really, really good regardless. It looked pretty awesome. And then we get to see Wonder Woman kind of looking out into the water and looking at some islands and stuff while she's holding the arrow of Artemis. Now this kind of sets up, in my opinion, Wonder Woman 3, where she is going to go back to Themyscira at some point, or have something more to do with the Amazons, and it is set in current day, so I think that is a setup for Wonder Woman 3. And then we also get to see Superman do the patented shirt rip, where you get to see the S symbol underneath it, and it kind of ends with that. Now I think that was supposed to be the regular ending for the movie, and then we get some cut scenes. Obviously, these are what would be mid-credit and post-credit scenes. So the mid-credit scene is the same one that showed up in the theatrical cut, which is Lex Luthor and Deathstroke. And instead of the corny, "Oh, let's build a league of our own," which didn't really make sense because the Justice League hadn't been formed yet and they hadn't been calling themselves the Justice League, so why would you call yourselves a league of your own? But this one was executed a lot better. Lex actually snitched and told him that Bruce Wayne is Batman. So that would have set up the Batman versus Deathstroke movie, which would have been really cool. And Lex also hints that Deathstroke lost his eye to Batman. So that would have been a really cool setup for that movie. It seemed like it would have gotten really personal. And if Ben Affleck was directing it and stuff, it felt like it could have been a really cool movie. But obviously that's not happening anymore. Or at least it's not happening in the main movie universes. But the next thing that we get to see is what I would have thought to be the end credits scene in the theatrical cut, because obviously Zack already made us sit 4 hours through this, so instead of making us sit through all the credits and stuff, he just tacked these on back to back. So then we get to see the nightmare scene. Now this nightmare scene was in Batman v Superman. Cyborg did get a premonition of it in this movie as well. We get to see this is basically after Darkseid has won, and Superman is now Darkseid's main enforcer. Now I'll explain to you what that scene is after, and kind of how they got there in a second, but first I want to just tell you about the team that's there. We see Batman, we see Flash, Cyborg, Deathstroke, and Mira, and obviously Batman says they want to keep moving so that Superman can't come get them, and Mira tells him, well, I want him to come because she wants to get revenge for Aquaman. Obviously there's nothing Mira can do to Superman, but obviously she's heated, and Batman says he understands her pain, but like they have to stick to the plan. They can't just try to fight Superman head on. That's committing suicide. And then Joker and Batman have a really cool, little bit of a spat between them. And I never hated Jared Leto's Joker. I just felt like the direction he was given was really poor. I hated the tattoos. I hated the grill. I hated that whole look. This Joker is very different looking, and I like his weird sadistic style. I think it really speaks and does pretty good, and I think it's nice that he's not trying to imitate anyone's Joker and do a specific kind of laugh or something like that. He's doing his own thing, and I think it works well here, and I think it fits in line with Ben Affleck's Batman well here. So it's a pretty cool scene. And then we get to see Superman, who is evil, return to the scene, and he comes there and he lights his eyes up, which technically could mean a lot of these guys are going to die in that scene right there. But we don't get to see anything further than that. And then finally it is open, and Bruce Wayne opens his eyes and it's revealed that that was a dream. So Batman had yet another premonition of this nightmare timeline, and Batman steps outside and sees Martian Manhunter is out there, and Martian Manhunter says that he has a stake in this world and it's time he starts fighting for it. He knows Darkseid's coming, so they need to find the anti-life equation before Darkseid comes and finds it himself. And obviously we know that with the nightmare timeline and everything, Darkseid is eventually going to get it, but Martian Manhunter is basically saying he's come to join the Justice League. And Batman says, cool, we could use your help. Never hurts. Now, I did have a little bit of an issue with it. Like I said, Martian Manhunter not showing up in Man of Steel and BVS kind of made sense to me. Why he didn't show up for the Steppenwolf fight and he's coming in after, I don't necessarily know. Was he waiting to see if Steppenwolf would win the fight? Because he didn't know Superman would be coming back. So unless he figured out somehow that Superman would be coming back and he could win that fight really easily, that's the only way it would have made sense. Also, Superman has seen him many, many times. So it would only make sense for Superman to either know that he is a Martian, or for Martian Manhunter to reveal that he's been hiding his secret from Superman using his telepathy. So that would be the only other way that it would make sense. And then finally, let me explain the nightmare sequence to you. The reason why the nightmare timeline comes to be, and we did see images from this in previous parts, basically when Cyborg looked through and saw his premonition, he saw that Superman had a charred body in his hands crying, and Darkseid put his hand on his shoulder. So what basically happened to get to this nightmare timeline? Darkseid comes to Earth to get the anti-life equation and to fight Earth's army, and he speaks to Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor was working with Darkseid to try and get the anti-life equation. So once Darkseid is on Earth, Superman brings Lois to the Batcave and tells Batman, this is a fight between the gods, you need to back off, I'm gonna go take on Darkseid, and he leaves Lois there in Batman's protection. He flies off to go fight Darkseid, and Superman actually looks like he's holding his own and doing a great job against Darkseid, so Darkseid flees the fight. He takes a boom tube right into the Batcave, and he uses his Omega beams to torch Lois. And Superman, at the speed he can fly at, he can hear where the boom tube is opening up, so he flies at full speed, gets there just in time to see Lois torched and charred in his hands, and as he's holding her in his hands, he succumbs to the anti-life equation. Now, the anti-life equation is basically something that's gonna take free will away from you. And Superman has one of the strongest, most indomitable wills, but he does give in because he's lost Lois, and now he has no connection and no reason for him to not give in to the anger and the aggression and all that stuff. So he gives himself the dark side, and that's how the Nightmare timeline happens. Now, in order for you guys to know how this Nightmare timeline ends, that basically would have happened in Justice League 3, where they get the Flash to go on a cosmic treadmill and go back in time and tell Batman something for Batman to, in that situation, sacrifice himself and let the Omega beams hit him. So instead of Superman seeing Lois get charred, he sees Batman get charred. And instead of it breaking him, it just makes him angry. And he beats the life out of Darkseid and the Green Lanterns and all of the Earth's heroes, the Atlanteans, the Amazons, everyone work together, and Earth unites against Darkseid and his army, and they send him back. And then that is the end. And that is how the Snyderverse, which was supposed to be Justice League 1, 2, and 3, ended up only being Justice League 1, but that's how it would have ended, which does seem like a really cool idea. But even if this is all we get, guys, the Snyder Cut is now over. It was freaking awesome to me. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10, and I'm officially putting it right under Man of Steel for best DCEU movies in all of DCEU. I got Man of Steel number 1, I got Zack Snyder's Justice League number 2, and then Wonder Woman 2017 number 3. That's my top 3. That's what I'm sticking with, unless I get something moving forward to kind of oust that. But Zack Snyder's Justice League for me was an absolute triumph. If you saw it, or if you didn't see it and you just heard my descriptions, tell me what you think. This is the Markham Knight, and I need you to like, comment, and subscribe.